My name is Frank Scarpa. I work for the Myrtle Beach Fire Department. I've been here 13 years. I've been in Myrtle Beach for 13 years.
All right.
I have a wife and a couple of kids.
How long have you known Jimmy Moore?
Probably 6 or 7 total. And we lived together for 4 or 5 of those.
Okay.
Before he met his wife, during the dating time with his wife, up until I got married and kind of said, okay, I got to settle down. And then him and Jamie got settled down soon after.
All right. How did you get together with Jimmy? How'd you meet him?
First time I met him, actually, I was at a bar, local establishment, and I was friends with the manager, and I told him I was looking for a roommate. My parents had just built a second home here. They still lived up north, and I had to pay the bills for the house. So my sister was living with me, but we needed, my old roommate had moved back to New Jersey, so I needed a roommate, and actually he introduced me to Jimmy right there. And Jimmy was working for TV 13 at the time, which was literally right down the street from where we lived. We hit it off great. I'll be honest with you, my sister was a little worried at first because she didn't know him from a hole in the wall. But I'll tell you, it couldn't have been 3 months into it, and up until today, him and my sister are like best friends. And of course, Jimmy and I had a great relationship also.
So y'all were living together, you, your sister, and Jimmy in the same apartment?
Yep, and I tell you, at one point, there was, when my parents finally moved down, they were getting a house built. So we had me and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Jimmy, my sister, both my parents, and 2 dogs all lived in the house for 8 months for a short period of time. And it was fun. And a quick story is, I'm a Giants fan. Jimmy's a diehard Patriots fan. Well, this was the year that they played each other in the Super Bowl the first time. So we actually had set up the dining room as a living room and the living room as a living room just because there was always a lot of people. Well, for Super Bowl, Jimmy and his New England friends were in the dining room, and me and my family were in the living room, and we were yelling back and forth to each other as the game went on. And the Giants won, and a couple of them were crying, and it was a lot of fun. It was good stuff. Jimmy cooked a bunch of food, and we had a blast.
Talk a little bit about that in terms of how Jimmy was as a roommate. What kind of things y'all did?
He was busy. You know, he really loved his work, doing the news stuff. He was always out doing. He helped get a story. My truck got broken into at the firehouse in a different location one day, and he took it upon himself to make it a story. And a week later, we had a fence that went all the way down our driveway to make it less accessible for people to get into our parking lot. And I had to explain to the chief. I'm like, Chief, I didn't report this. He took this upon himself. He obviously saw the truck with the broken window, but you know, he was just a go-getter. And so between, you know, I met a lot of other friends through Jimmy, the news people. He made new friends through me with the fire department and friends, and we'd have parties. And we've had toga parties and we'd have sport parties. You know, if there was he was really into wrestling, the professional wrestling, the WWF, stuff like that. So if there was a WrestleMania on pay-per-view, he'd get a bunch of friends over. They'd all chip in to pay for it, and you know, that he would do that. And he always liked working golf charity events. If he wasn't working, he'd try to participate in them and play. Again, he was just always on the move, but he always on the move and always full of energy. Don't remember ever seeing him in a bad mood. He never came in the house and just sat on the couch or hid up in his bedroom for any time, for any reason. You know, like we would sit there and have a beer and talk about things. If one of us had a bad day, no big deal.
He was the kind of guy who liked to be around people. Like
Oh yeah, yeah. He was very social. Like I said, if there was a day I was at the firehouse and nobody was around the house, he wasn't home. He was out either working or hanging out with his buddies, doing something. And then when I was home, sometimes he wasn't home either. He'd just be a busy guy, or we would get together and be like, "Hey, I'm off this day. Let's throw a party," and we would throw a party. Or a big sporting event, and you know, Yankees against the Red Sox, and then he'd break out all his cooking toys, and you know, he loved cooking.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
He was a great cook. I can't remember off the top of my head if he went to school for it or not. I think he did, but I'm not 100% sure. It didn't matter. He was phenomenal at cooking, whether it was smoking ribs on a grill or making homemade sushi. Like, we wanted sushi one night, and he said, "Well, don't order anything. I'll be back in an hour." And he'd go to the store, and he came back with everything to make sushi from scratch, and it was amazing. You know, it tasted fantastic, and you know, I think that was really close to his heart. And I think everybody also you know, you talked about Jimmy, you talked about his cooking skills, and that's something we've lost. But you know, he was really good at it, and he was motivated to do it. And he'd always, you know, every couple of weeks he'd come home with a new toy, whether it be some sort of blender or just a spatula he liked or whatever. And if you wanted him to cook, he'd go all out, and it was all good.
I know this is not fun to talk a little bit about the day of the accident, how you found out all that.
I was actually here at this fire station, and a mutual friend of ours called me, said Jimmy had been in the accident. She was kind of having trouble telling me what was going on, so I blatantly just asked her, I'm like, is he alive or is he dead? And she said he's alive, but it's pretty bad. And that was really all I got. And I got off of work 7 a.m. that morning, and me and another friend of his, mutual friend of ours, Mike, we got in the car and drove to Spartanburg. We got to the hospital, met Jamie. You know, was already wheeling and dealing, figuring things out. Her boss at the time, her manager at the time for the news place up there, was there with her. Man, there might have been another girl there, girlfriend of hers there, I don't remember. But he was just coming out of first surgery, I guess. And when we were allowed, Mike went in first. And I tell you what, Mike was probably a little tougher than I was. He come out, he was red, you could tell he was a little upset. And he told me just be prepared. And it was bad. The first day, I mean, he looked dead. His eyes were open, but he was laying there lifeless. Had the collar. He was trached. He had a tube coming out of the top of his head. And at that point, nobody knew what was going to come of it. It was very, you know, could go either way. And so when I came out of the room, I was a mess for a few minutes, and then I composed myself. I talked to Mike a little bit about something I wanted to do, and I went back outside and I started calling friends of ours from here and started setting up a benefit, because I knew it was going to be a long thing and Jamie was going to need a lot of help. And we got that rolling, and a few hours left, we drove back to the beach.
Tell me a little bit about the benefit. What did you guys do?
Basically, we ran an auction, and again, Jimmy was very popular in the town, whether it was council people, stores, restaurants, bars, very popular, always outgoing. So with the help of John Staten, who owns Bumsteads in Dagwoods, he helped me get the word out. And basically we were taking donations of material items, everything from sunglasses to another good friend of Jimmy's from the news service, Cecil. He got, you know, week-long passes at hotels. And what we did was we went to Bumstead's maybe a month or two into it, and we had an auction. And we would just, okay, we're auctioning off a lamp made out of a Captain Morgan bottle. And it goes to the highest bidder. And basically, took us all night. We had a lot of stuff to give away. And I think the next day I gave a buddy of his, Scott, who actually lived in North Carolina, up near Charlotte, I think, or Raleigh at the time. He was going to head home, but he was going to go see Jimmy first for the first time. So I think I gave him an envelope or a pencil case full of about $35,000, maybe $4,000 cash, just to give to Jamie. Because at this point, if she wasn't still, she was eating 3 meals a day at the hospital. You know, she was there 24/7. So, you know, you still got bills to pay. So whatever we could have done to help, and we did that. That was quick. Did what we could in a short amount of time.
What was Jimmy like at the hospital? Was he even able to talk that first day you saw him?
No. The first time I saw him, he could have been dead. You wouldn't have known the difference. His color was gone. He had tubes and wires coming out everywhere. His eyes were all open. But he was lifeless, swollen. Just, other than the wound back on his head, he didn't have too many superficial wounds, but we'd already known that his spine was destroyed. And from the stories I was getting, obviously not from him, that when the accident first happened, his head he pretty much scalped himself with the rollover, and I think he told the first responder he couldn't feel his legs, and then just from the rest of the trauma, I think that's when he lost everything else and never regained it.
You went to see him later at Shepherd Center, right?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
about, what was he
It
like
was,
at that point?
I was happy to see him conscious, I guess. He was in his chair, I think, the first time I saw him. Again, he was still confined to the Shepherd Center. I think it was 7 weeks, give or take, 7 or 8 weeks after the accident when I went to see him again. You know, granted, he's 4 hours away. And again, you know, after I saw him the first time, I would wait and hear and see what was going on before I was gonna make a move. If they thought something bad was gonna happen, I would have made a trip, but as he was coming around, you know, once it was a good time, I think my wife came with me to go see him at the Shepherd Center, and I held it together. I was happy to see him. I think a good, not that it's a positive, but I guess for the situation at hand, Jimmy's brain was intact, more or less. So he still had his personality, he still had his wit, you know, and you can have a normal conversation with him. I think if that would have not been there, I think that it would have been not that it wasn't a total disaster, but really a lot worse. So I think I fed him while I was there. And I mean, even for an adult, it's scary because, you know, you gotta feed him. You gotta make sure you don't give him too much. What is he gonna do if he starts choking? He's helpless. He needs constant help now. I mean, I'd be there for him every day if he needed it, but he's in good hands. But it was tough. I just, you know, touching his hand, and you can just tell there's nothing there. I mean, it sucked.
What was he like, how was he holding up at that point?
If he wasn't holding up well, you wouldn't have known. I'm sure he had to put on a front a couple of times. I'm sure it, I mean, just from stories I was told, again, I wasn't there every day, I don't know when they started or how they started, but they have to go to counseling to deal with this stuff, to learn how to live in this new circumstance. And I'm sure it wasn't easy for Jimmy or Jamie. Guarantee it wasn't. But you would never known if he was having a good day or a bad day until you heard afterwards, or if I wanted to call and talk to him and Jamie's like, he's resting, or, you know, the first while when he was more dependable on that vent, it was hard for him to carry on the conversation. He'd just get tired real fast. You know, that wasn't Jimmy. Jimmy was running and gunning 15 hours a day, you know. But again, luckily he still had his wit and his brain, I guess, to put it, where he knew who you were, and you can have a conversation and you can talk sports, and he didn't miss a beat on any of that. And that probably made things a little bit more bearable.
How did Jamie do through all this?
Again, I mean, unfortunately, this was far away from where I live, so I wasn't there on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
So maybe, you know, if they had to call us for something, or preparing, you know, if you're looking further down the road when they were able to move around a little bit more, you know, if they had a bad day, you didn't know it. And they probably would have prevented being around anybody if they were going to have a bad day, or if Jimmy was just in a bad mood. But I don't know, Jimmy. I'm sure Jimmy probably frustrates himself every day. You know, he's got a kid now. He can't hold her. You know, but they put a good front on if they were having a bad day. They're two very strong people.
Have you been to see them since they got out of the hospital, where they're living now, or where they were living before?
I've actually, yes, I actually took them to a Yankee game against the Braves.
In Atlanta?
In Atlanta. It was a couple of years ago. I went with my wife and another couple, and we went and saw a game, just the four of us. And then the next day, I called the stadium. I told them what I needed. I told them, you know, I need an electrical outlet. I need handicap seating for a very large wheelchair. I needed tickets for Jamie. I needed a ticket for Jimmy. I needed a ticket for the nurse, our tickets. And that was great. It worked out fantastic. He had fun. When he had to go get suctioned, no problem. He didn't go far. It rained a little bit, but we stayed dry. That was probably the only time I've been there where he was living. He has been here a couple of times, and he makes it a point on his own. He likes coming back to the house, so I'll make sure I can get him in and out of the house. He comes with his own ramp now, so, you know, he likes coming back to the house when he's here, even if he just hang out and watch some TV. I think he just, you know, I'm sure he probably has a lot of memories in that house, good ones. You know, he makes it a point to see our family. You can't tie him up too much or do this and that. I mean, he still gets real tired, and, you know, he's good for a few hours, and he likes to see certain people, and he likes to go to certain places, all places that he liked when he lived here and was normal. And so I'd say that probably happened more often than not. We're always looking to going back to visiting him, and there's no reason not to. It's just timing and what's going on and stuff.
It sounds like when you see him, it's same Jimmy, but, you know, the confines and the problems and all take a toll.
Yeah, well, you know, again, I'm not with him every day.
Right.
So when I see him months apart, it's like getting punched in the gut all over again. And, you know, I hold my own when I'm with him, and we talk and have fun, but it's just mentally, when I leave, I'm like, this sucks every time. I've never really rebounded from it. And maybe it's just because I'm not around him that much.
Talk a little bit just about how he's dealt with all this.
How who? How he's
How
done?
Jimmy's dealt with all this, and Jamie too, for that matter.
I don't know. They're just strong people. You know, they have a good support staff around them. I guess the nurses do what they got to do. And I'm sure Jamie, you know, I don't know if they still, you know, I don't know what they do on a day-to-day basis anymore. And, you know, I'm not going to call and be like, hey, Jamie, you still going to counseling, or what's Jimmy doing? That's none of my business, you know. You know, they got their baby now, and as far as I know, things are good and as good as they can be, I guess.
Have you gotten to see Jimmy around, Spencer?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, they were all at my house, probably maybe last summer.
Okay.
They've all been to the house, yeah.
What's that like for him?
I mean, again, he's probably used to it and dealing with it the way he's got to. It frustrated the hell out of me. And at this time, Spencer was a little younger, so she was still grabbing at a lot of stuff that he's hooked up to. So they got to be a little cautious. And then now I see pictures, and she's probably able to climb up on his lap by herself now. And so I guess, I don't know. I mean, I would assume that because he was in the chair before Spencer got here, he's able to deal with it a little better. I'm sure if he was normal, had the baby, and then had the accident, again, it would probably be much worse. So I'm sure it's as good as it can be.
I think that's about all I've got, Frank, unless you can think of anything.
No, I'm good.